There is a particular kind of dread that creeps up within us, usually late at night. The sense that everyone else has moved ahead of you, that the years are accelerating, and that you fell behind, or you're behind schedule and may never catch up. You scroll, and the evidence is everywhere. Someone you knew bought the house. Someone else has the job title you wanted. Everyone appears to be exactly where they are supposed to be, and you are not. Time presses down on you like a deadline with no clear date. A formless pressure that something important is slipping past while you remain at a standstill. This is one of the most common forms of suffering in modern life, and almost everything you have been told to do about it is wrong. Because the insecure feeling is real. But the perceived expectation that evokes the feeling of it does not exist. To feel behind, there has to be a schedule to be behind on. A sequence of milestones that occur at the correct ages that a life is meant to follow. Most people never examine this schedule. They live through it and buy it without ever asking where it came from. So let's unpack it now. Some of it you inherited from your parents, who set out into their formative years in a completely different economy and a different century. Some you absorbed from peers and the people around you by watching the few moments they chose to make visible online. And much of it is an average, a statistical composite of strangers, which describes no actual person who has ever lived. You formed a sort of measuring tape out of these fragments, then began measuring your own vastly unique and unrepeatable life against it. The way life should be measured feels objective. It is just not. You built it yourself, mostly without noticing. And the markers it was based on were written for a society and a world that has essentially dissolved. The script survived. The conditions that upheld and justified it did not. So see this clearly. You are not failing to keep pace with reality. You are failing to keep pace with a constructed fallacy. The problem is not your position on the timeline. The problem is the timeline. There is a deeper layer, and it is worth being honest about. I am running out of time is rarely the whole truth of the matter. It is just a more acceptable translation of something more difficult to verbalize. Underneath it, for most people, sits one of two fears. The first is the fear of judgment, that falling behind means being seen as a failure, exposed, left out of the group of winners who somehow got it right. The second layer is simply existential. It is the fear of death, not in an anxious way, just the awareness that the years are finite, that you will not get to do everything possible on this earth, and that you have not yet been given the leverage or stable footing to start. Insisting that you're running out of time lets you express both without facing either. It keeps the dread vague, and vague dread is easier to carry than the specific issue that lies beneath it. But vague dread is also impossible to address, precisely because you have not identified what it is that you dread. So name it. When you begin to feel the pressure from comparing your own place in life to someone else's, ask which fear is actually underneath it. Are you afraid of being judged for where you are? Or afraid that life is short and you are not yet living it? The two call for completely different responses, and the vague panic keeps you from specifying them. But identifying the source of the insecurity is exactly how you begin to dismantle it. Suppose you ignore all of this and decide to try and catch up to some imaginary standard anyway. It is worth understanding why that almost never produces the result that you expect. Psychologists call the mistake underneath it the arrival fallacy. The belief that reaching a goal will lastingly change how you feel. You assume the promotion, the relationship, the house will deliver a sense of having arrived. The truth is that acquiring these things will produce the feeling briefly, but then it ultimately fades. This is not a personal flaw within you. It is that human beings adjust to new circumstances with remarkable speed. The thing you longed for becomes the thing you have, and then the baseline resets. This means the person you imagine ahead of you, settled, arrived, at peace, does not exist either. The people who hit the markers early are not relaxing in satisfaction. They are anxious about the next marker. Catching up does not end the trap of self-comparison. You simply begin measuring against and comparing yourself to something just slightly further ahead. The feeling of being behind is not produced by your position. It is produced by the act of measuring itself. And measuring is something you carry with you to every position you achieve. 2,000 years ago, the philosopher Seneca watched the people of Rome behave exactly as we do, and made an observation that is still perfectly relevant today. People guard their property fiercely, yet hand their time away to anyone who asks. They treat money as precious and time as worthless, when money can be recovered and time cannot. His central claim was this: life is not short. We make it short by squandering it. Most people, he said, are not living. They are always getting ready to live, postponing the real thing to a point further down the timeline that keeps endlessly receding. It inverts the whole problem. You are not running out of time. You are wasting the time you have. You remain focused on rehearsing the future instead of wholly inhabiting the present. The ancient Greeks had a more refined understanding of time than we do. They had two different words for time. The first was chronos, clock time, the calendar, ages, and deadlines, the relentless count. This is the kind of time you feel you are losing. The second was kairos, the opportune moment, qualitative time, the depth of an experience rather than its length. An afternoon that changed your whole life, a conversation you still remember decades later. Kairos is measured by meaning, not by minutes. Here is the issue. You run your entire life on chronos, while everything that makes a life worth living happens in kairos. You are using the wrong instrument to measure the wrong thing, and then suffering over the result. This is not a suggestion that you should ignore time or that deadlines do not exist. It's asking you to consider measuring your life by the right standard. 3 things to do with this. First, separate the real clock from the imagined one. Some deadlines are genuine. A body ages, certain windows do close. Most of the deadlines generating your daily anxiety are invented and arbitrary. Honor the real ones. Discard the rest. Second, build your own markers. If the inherited schedule fits a world that no longer exists, you are not obligated to march to it. Decide what a life well spent means to you specifically, and measure against that. A self-chosen standard is the only one that can ever be met. The third and hardest, the thing Seneca was pointing at. The only moment you are ever alive in is the current one. The past is memory, the future is projection. Both are happening right now. Inside a present you are too distracted to occupy. Reclaiming the present is not a relaxation technique. It is the whole of the available life. The irony in worrying about running out of time is that it consumes the very time you are afraid of losing. You spend the present mourning a future that has not yet arrived, and lose the present too. The one stretch of time that you actually had at your disposal. You are not behind. There is no schedule. There is a finite, unrepeatable stretch of time that belongs to you, and a choice about whether to spend it anxious about its length or awake to its possibilities. The schedule is not real. The clock, however, is. The only question worth your anxiety is not whether you are on time. It is whether you are actually here for the time you have. If this was worth your time, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so that you will know when each episode is live. Out of the blue.